Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this new session of the Sales Leadership Podcast. Thanks again for taking the time to join us today. My name is Simon Rodriguez. I'm with the team here joining and developing the Sales Leadership Podcast. I'm based in Calgary, Western Canada, and the main purpose of these sessions is for us to share the best practices and our experience throughout our sales journey, and with the expectation that this can help you in your journey as you progress in the sales career or in the sales aspect of your profession. So with that, I'll hand it over to my co-host and partner here with the podcast, Wajid Ali. Over to you, Wajid.
Hey, thank you, Simon. Hello, everybody. Welcome again. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. As Simon said, the purpose of these podcasts and these conversations are much more so to provide you some insight, to help you in your journey to become a better version of yourself, and to learn from our experiences that we have gained over the last 2 decades. So, my name, Wajid Ali, based in Toronto, Canada, and today we'll be talking about some of the leftover topics or items that we couldn't finish on our previous episode. So, if you are following us on LinkedIn here, we started this with this new year. We started a new series with 3 episodes. So this is the third one, and it was about the future of the sales. So we kind of covered some of the items in our previous 2 episodes. Today we'll be talking about the last couple of topics that we still needed to get it over. So Simon, when we were talking last week in our previous episode, I think where we left were at the topic was the rise of social selling, right? And
Correct.
just in the context, if somebody has just joined us and they're looking at for the first time, I will share the link to the audience here at the end of this recording. So I'll share the link here so you can go and read up for yourself for that article. It's about 5 minutes read. And we are just getting these insights from that article that we posted on LinkedIn a few weeks ago. So we did talk about social selling and we kind of have a deep dive of that. Now today we are going into the topic that is more on the abilities of the humans, right? What is it that a human can do? What is it that a role that human can play? We did talk about AI. We did talk about the present in the social media. So those are all the tools that we did talk about. But when it comes to selling, what is it that a human can do and how much a human can impact actually during that, if you're looking at it from the future perspective, and also even if you're looking at it from today's perspective. So Simon, what are your some initial thoughts, and then we'll just have a little bit of deep dive on this topic too.
Certainly, and thank you, Wajid, for that summary, for that recap. And it's interesting also to summarize the last point we touched on in the last session, which was around social selling and leveraging platforms like to develop content, to have engagement with sessions, to sort of bring customers on board. Now, the reason I'm also sharing that is because this next topic, as you mentioned, upskilling for the future, is that human centric connection and human centric social interaction. I think there is a connection as well with that technology, and that will be my first approach, is obviously keeping genuine connections, open and honest connections, but also tracking and measuring the success of obviously those interactions. And from my perspective, one way to do that is leveraging technology, things like analytics, metrics, capturing also how your outreach is working in terms of connecting with the right audience, with the right people at the organization that you're pursuing. So that will be my initial take also here, Wajid, and for the audience, is looking at technology as an enabler of ensuring this or augmenting this human connection with prospects. And I want to get your view on this as well, because we always been talking about the role technology plays. We're talking here about the sales, especially the future, and leveraging all those things we have at hand. So what's your take, Wajid, on leveraging technology to is kind of a it's interesting because on one side we're saying, okay, we want to make things human centric, right? The approach and connections, but at the same time, we're trying to maximize the benefit of technology. So how would you balance those two elements with it to ensure that we have a more human centric connection and more genuine relationship with our customers?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's we are not making it complicated. Actually, we're trying to make it simpler for our audience so that if you are in a situation where you were to pick and choose between what suits best for me in a certain situation, I think you can prioritize at that point. But essentially, yes, technology is an enabler. It empowers us to be more efficient, um, more knowledgeable, more insightful, and I guess more powerful when it comes to solution sales, complex sales, and those kind of functions, right? And along those lines, since we're talking about how we can make it human centric while using the technology, I think human plays a greater role here again. And two of the things that kind of stand out for us here is the emotional intelligence piece and the consultative selling piece, right? When we say emotional intelligence, we need to understand and we need to be genuine about feeling for the customer, about trying to solve their problems, about understanding where they are, what step or process they are in today. And then if you want to take them from point A to point B, what are the steps that they need to accomplish or steps they need to cross in order to reach to point B, right? So you need to understand, basically have understanding of the pain points of the customer, and then how can you leverage those insight to be an advisor, an advocate for your client and customer. And I think it's essential, even if you have all the tools and all the technologies in place, but if you don't have that human touch with your clients and your customer, you are not successful, even if you're thinking about sales of the future. And that's what this all is about.
Yeah, that's an interesting take too, Wajid, because I think is about that balance as you highlighted, is striving for that balance in terms of having those genuine connections and truly caring for about the customer and the outcome, right? What is it that they're trying to accomplish? What is it that they're trying to achieve? And how you can facilitate that journey. And something you capture there is meeting customers where they are. And I think that's something very, very important because by connecting with the customer at that point, at that stage of the journey that they are going through, it's where you make that long lasting connection and you're actually helping that customer advance through that journey, right? So it's not a generic approach, it's a specific approach based on the situation and the different elements that customer has. And I think that's the balance that we're striving for. Obviously, technology is an enabler, as you mentioned, but it should come from a strategic approach of making those consultative relationship, right? Or having that consultative selling approach into building those long-lasting relationships. So things as EQ that you mentioned, emotional intelligence, a main component, also the consultative selling approach, and lastly, using technology to help. So I think that summarize this point, which I think is fundamental. Now, the last point or the final point that we had as part of this obviously this article and this post we did was about globalization and remote selling. Obviously there are challenges, there's flexibility, opportunities and challenges as well when it comes to multiple different time zones, asynchronous communication. And what's your initial take on that, right? And the challenge and the opportunities that pose as well in terms of a globalized not only workforce, but globalized customers, globalized organization, globalized best practices. Any initial reactions or thoughts on your end about the role of globalization and also how remote selling will play a role here?
Yeah, essentially how I look at it is the globalization is actually making it easier And I'm seeing globalization from the technology perspective, right? Globalization is I guess a generic term. It could be
Right.
defined it could be defined or interpreted in many different ways. But when we say globalization here on this podcast today, it means the global human resource, right? So when you think about a person sitting in remote parts of Europe, but he's still able to sell here in North America, or a person sitting here in North America and he's able to sell in Middle East or Asia, or even within North America, it's a huge geography, right? So technology is actually empowering you to go out and sell to your customers, even if you don't need to be there in person physically. You can still do it. You just need to be mindful of the time zones, because when you do those reach out or cold calls or emails or even presentations, virtual conferences and webinars, just be mindful of your audience, who they are, where they are located. Um, because if, for instance, if you're in North America and you're doing a conference or a webinar in the morning here, and you're targeting people in Australia, then you're, I guess, not doing it in the right time zone. So you just need to be mindful of the time zone. Beside that, I guess this globalization of human resources is actually empowering the companies, the organization, to hunt for talent and then leverage the technology to empower the sales force.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, with you. And one thing which I think is interesting that you mentioned is being mindful of not only time zones but also days of the week. I just a quick story that working with some colleagues in the Middle East, I know like for Fridays normally
Right.
it's not a working day, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes even reaching out to customers, even partners and colleagues within a different not only region but also considering that maybe the day of the week is different, right? So things like that, I think, are important to get alignment. But I think you're right. I think we have the tools and the capabilities to have those global engagements and obviously leveraging those global connections. And I'm seeing more as well, like with not only technology but the way the systems and the methodologies for engaging or having different engagement with customer is also standardized. Is easier, as you said, to engage even based here in North America, engaging with customers in Latin America, Europe, Middle East. So it
Yeah.
becomes more as a standard approach. And I think that's something quite valuable and that we can capitalize working with different organizations. So that's an interesting point. And we talked about that the localized messaging and I know that's something that so sometimes when you craft a specific message, relevant message in global markets, what's your take? Because I mean, I know in our case, coming from a technical background, like there's different like different standards, technology standards if you're in Europe or in North America. But what's your take in terms of not only standards but kind of a culture messaging, crafting, maybe the type of solution, the value proposition? Do you see any differences with it? Or let's put it this way, let's say that you are pursuing an opportunity in Europe. Would you craft your value proposition differently? Would you make any adjustments? What's your view there?
Understanding the culture of your audience, of your customer, I think it's a key, because again, think about this way: if you don't understand a certain culture and you approach them, if you have a one generic approach to the entire global population, um, it wouldn't help you. So if you're approaching somebody in North America, here the culture is much more different. It's very direct, very open. But if you go out in some other places of the world, yeah, they have their own, call it protocols, or cadence of how would you approach a different level of different titles within the organization. Like there's a higher hierarchy, there is sometimes bureaucracy and stuff like that. So you need to understand the audience. It's very important. I mean, globalization is of course going to help us, uh, but I think here comes the role of organizations, the corporations, on how they train their people, how they train their sales force, how they again leverage the technology to help train their sales force so that they understand different cultures. Even if you're living in one part of the world and you're trying to engage customers in other part of the world, the companies and organization can potentially help you understand these different cultures and can help you grow as a person. I think that's my take on it. Everybody would look at it differently, but what are your thoughts, Simon? And then I guess perhaps we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I know. I share your view there, Wajid, that is being mindful about the cultural way of approaching business in different regions. And I think, as a summary, I think considering the two aspects we covered today and going back to the initial topics we covered when we started these sessions about the sales of the future, right? That approach, I think, all summarizes in three aspects: is being adaptable, being able
Yeah.
to adjust, and this goes to this point depending on the region, the market. So being able to adjust and adapt, being technically savvy as well, like that tech savvy approach, like leveraging technology as much as we can, using those tools, but always keeping that empathetic and a genuine connection with your customers and prospects. So that's the way I'll summarize it. I know that covers most of the article that we have been going through the last few sessions with you. But any final thoughts, any final comments on your end?
No, thank you, Simon, for summarizing it for us and for the audience. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope it was useful to you all. And if there's any feedback, any comment, it's always appreciated. Leave it in the comment section below. We'll be back with you guys next week with a new episode with a new topic. Until then, take care and have a nice weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.